Hello. Welcome to the Magentleman Interview Podcast.
Welcome.
Steve B, you're not wearing a tie. I am. So I'm gonna go ahead.
Yeah,
I'm
I
gonna
feel
mark you down a few points.
I feel underdressed. I'm not gonna get the job today.
Here we go. So yeah, I mean, oh boy. Yeah, I'm just gonna make a little note about that.
Oh wow,
Here we go. Making the note.
you're that guy.
And then so the enemy of my Steve B enemy is my friend. Heard the saying, right? But if you're your own worst enemy, then you're my friend.
Okay, I guess that makes sense. Are you implying that we're friends?
I don't know. I'm trying to figure it out. It's kind of a riddle.
That's
Have
a
you
tough
ever
one.
gotten a brain teaser in an interview?
No. You?
Okay. Yes. You want me to give it to you?
Sure.
Okay. So the brain teaser I got in an actual interview goes like
What?
this. It goes like this. Okay. Imagine you're sitting in a room, and in this room is a light switch. Turn it on, turn it off. And there's a door connected to another room. And in that room, there's 4 light bulbs. Now, the light switch in the room you're in turns on and off one of those bulbs. When you're not allowed to like turn the switch on, go in the other room and see which one's lit. You have to somehow, from one room, figure out which light is being lit in the other room. Can you do that?
From one room. You're not allowed to go into the other rooms?
No, like you would have to imagine there's some sort of locking mechanism. It's connected. This thing has to be off. Like that's a part of the riddle. You can't just turn it on and walk in the other room and say it's the third one. That's part of it.
Yeah, I think you explained to me how this was solved before.
Oh no! Did I really?
No, but I mean honestly, I don't remember what the solution was.
Well, the answer is that the guy told me I probably thought about it for like maybe 30 seconds, and I was just like, I don't know.
Exactly.
And he was like, well, what it is that you turn it on for a minute or so, and then you go in the other room and you feel them, and you see.
But I thought you couldn't go in the other room.
No, you can as long as the switch isn't on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's part of it. Yeah. So, and that's how you decide is like which one's the warm one, right?
Okay. Yeah.
That was a thing someone actually asked me in an interview. I have one more riddle for you, if you will indulge me.
Sure.
Okay, so the next riddle is this. A woman goes to her mom's funeral, very sad, but she meets this guy who she just clicks with. It's like the best conversation ever, but she doesn't get his name and she doesn't get his contact information. And then 3 days later, she kills her sister. Why?
Because she met the guy at a funeral.
Yeah, what? Yeah, keep going.
Well, if she's hoping that she'll meet this guy at the funeral again, at the next funeral, right?
Yeah, that's the answer. And this is actually a famous riddle that, according to some study, sociopaths and business leaders get it right, like immediately, like you did. Like, well, she kills her sister so that there's like another family member funeral.
Yeah.
And he'll probably come to it.
Well, and so I'm not a sociopath.
Maybe you're a business leader.
I'm hoping to be a business leader,
There you
but
go.
but just to let you know, I kind of heard the riddle in like I think it was in psychology class or something like that.
Hey, there's my cat. And don't mind the disturbing
your
artwork
cat,
back here.
a
That's
business mind. He was
my
like,
kids.
I know the answer. Yeah.
They're doing some fantastic stuff lately. So, the interview podcast. Are you excited?
I am excited.
Are you nervous?
Yeah, I hope I mean, I messed up the first. I didn't wear a tie, and I messed up the first riddle, so I'm a little worried.
It's all good.
Am I gonna be hired at Steve Chorsky Corp?
Sure.
E-
Yes.
Evil Corp?
Well, I mean, that's a good question. So we should get into whether or not you're going to be hired. And let me actually make another note here quietly. There we go. Another note has been made about this interview. Um, what are the things? Have you done interviews, like, or have you just interviewed? Let me ask you that.
Um. So yeah, I've done I've been interviewed more than I have interviewed others, but I've done a little bit of both for
Okay.
sure. We've actually interviewed people together.
That's right.
You forgot?
Yeah, I forgot. I've done so many. I forgot that we did. We have interviewed people together. That's right.
Yeah.
Let me ask you: have you ever been given a take-home test?
Oh yeah. So when I was first trying to break into the software development industry, yeah, that was that I had a whole bunch of take home projects. They were like due within 24 hours of like the initial like acceptance or whatever, and it like I'd have like two or three of these due in a single day, and it brought like so much stress to me, and it'd be like in a technology that I'm not really like familiar with, so there's like a lot of all I can say is yes, I have done them, but not a fan, not a fan.
I absolutely hate them. I've done probably 3 or 4 in my day, and I've never gotten a job or even a callback.
Because you
So
you suck at homework or projects.
here's what I tell myself. Here's what I tell myself. Is that it's almost like a scam. I feel like, if because for me, like when I think about if I were to give somebody a test, right, like a take-home test, I would have to, for the amount of work that I would need to really know if they know their stuff, and like I would need them to do probably 4 to 8 hours worth of work. And then for me to review that work, like let's say we had a couple of different candidates, that would probably take the person who's like checking on the work 4 to 8 hours. So it's just a ton of time being sunk into this thing that to me is from the interviewer side, I find unnecessary. And like I said, like I've done a bunch of those, and they take me forever to do. I know I do well, and then I just don't hear anything, and it's like it's weird. I
You
don't.
think they just stole your work, implemented your code?
Yeah, I really feel like that about at least one of them. The other ones, maybe they. Who knows, man? Who knows? It's really weird. I think it's a strange thing to ask, and a strange. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely not a fan. I'm seeing.
Yeah, but I know some people do it, and I would like to hear. First of all, like and subscribe. Smash that like button. Hit the bell. You know,
Yeah, I don't think we did. We introduce ourselves like we usually do.
we're the Magentlemen. This is the
Yeah.
Magentlemen interview podcast. I'm Steve T. I said
And
your name in like a riddle.
I'm Steve B, and this is the fourth installment, right?
Yes,
If
but it's
you're here,
episode 3 because we started at 0.
oh yeah. So, if you're here for the fourth time, we love and appreciate you, and we would definitely hire you if you interviewed.
I don't know. Okay, I don't.
Okay.
I'm not there yet. So we're not fans of the take-home test as either as giving one or having to take one. What about like whiteboarding, or have you done much whiteboarding in interviews?
um, I did one whiteboarding situation. It wasn't a whiteboard. It was just white printing paper. So it was for a Java role. I didn't actually I actually took the test with a recruiter. So I went to their this was when I was still in Florida. A recruiter reached out and they told me they had this position. Very like very early in me like look like in the job search. So I end up like waking up super early, driving to this place, paying for expensive parking, and then I get to this office and it's not even the actual um, company. It's just the staffing agency, and they asked me a few questions, put me in this room. And I had like, maybe like 4 or 5 like algorithm related questions, and then one question related to like some front end stuff. I think I did okay. um I didn't end up getting the job, but that was like my only experience with that. But I like as a fresh graduate, I spent a lot of time like learning and researching how to best perform, like how to perform the best at those types of interviews, right? Because I didn't know about them. I didn't know I was heading in the Magento space. My internship was a Magento job, but I was still trying to use my skills from college, as you know, because Java was the main language that I focused on in college. So I was thinking, okay, I'm probably going to work at some you know, fintech place. Maybe I had like a lot of friends working at American Express, that type of thing, and they were in Java backend roles, which all required whiteboarding or some type of algorithms test. But yeah, only one time I ended up not getting the job. The other times I didn't have whiteboarding tests. They were coding challenges, but they were like, you know, online code academy hacker rank type situations.
Hmm.
um and you?
Yeah. I mean, even that one where that gave me that riddle with the light bulbs, they had me do fizz buzz on a whiteboard.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with that one?
Yes, yes.
I think they were actually kind of cool at interviewing. I don't really get the whole riddle thing, or I guess it's just like, is this person some kind of genius? Like,
I Yeah, I think whiteboarding is definitely, was it for like a bigger company?
it was for an agency.
An agency?
Yeah, it was before I got into e-commerce, so it was like a Drupal um, CMS websites that they were building.
Okay. Because I definitely feel like in the Magento space, whiteboarding isn't really a thing, right? Or what do you say?
Yeah, so I mean, like, as you know, but I'll say it here. When I do interviews for Magento people, I'm doing questions like scenario based, kind of, or I mean, really, like, there's kind of two different versions of a Magento interview I'll do. One of
Yeah.
them is for people who are certified, and then the other one is for people who aren't certified. So it's kind of like I have to, for the certified people, I just want to know, like, do they have their fundamentals, or do they just know kind of enough Magento to get certified? So that one I'll ask questions like, you know, what does three equal signs mean in JavaScript? You know, and that filters out a lot of times you'll get people that just aren't sure about that. So look it up, people. Um,
I'm happy to know the answer to that.
yeah, and I mean, it's kind of, that's one of those things where it's like, you, I guess, can study and learn enough about Magento and get certified, but not know what type checking is in
Yeah.
JavaScript. Like, it's possible, and I'm not that that's bad. I mean, let's say I had a role for, I mean, it is kind of bad, but let's say I had a role for someone to do a lot of layout stuff or something like that. Maybe I can teach you about JavaScript along the way, but it would be better if you knew that. Um, whiteboarding. I, so FizzBuzz was a fun one I did on a whiteboard. I've also failed at whiteboarding interviews because, like, front end, it kind of has two different sides, right? There's the front of the front end, and then there's the back of the front end. So you have kind of like your
What?
layout and all your CSS
Hmm.
guru stuff, and that can be its whole own career. But then
Yeah.
there's the JavaScript and connecting to the back end, kind of the back of the back end. And again, that can kind of be its whole own career, and you can specialize in all these different kind of areas there. Um, and yeah, at the time I was more front end focused. I had kind of a JavaScript interview, and they threw me to the lions on the whiteboard. I was just like, I don't know, it's kind of almost like what I see on YouTube with like Nick White or Yalgo expert uh,
Yeah,
guy, where it's like system design questions.
yeah.
I wasn't there, and they destroyed me.
Yeah, and like to I wanted to highlight what you said there, right? There's what's considered front end. Like front end just means so many things, and I think back end could mean so many things too, right? But in sometimes in Magento, when people refer to a job as a front end job, I'm thinking, do you mean just styling, and creating layouts, or are you referring to someone who's going to actually write JavaScript? Because there's a lot of JavaScript in Magento, and someone who might be amazing at turning some type of mock-up into something like that's an actual responsive website may not be able to handle creating custom UI components and doing all
Or
of
even
that.
just
So
the layout XML stuff.
exactly,
That's
exactly.
different than most front end people are used to.
I mean, that's the other thing is, you pointed out that a lot of people may have that certification that basically says, okay, I know Magento, right? But knowing Magento means you have an understanding of the framework and how things are done in the framework, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're a solid developer all around, right?
Yeah, I really put a lot of weight on certification, maybe too much, because well, maybe only once I've interviewed a certified person that I was kind of underwhelmed with, and kind of like, ooh, it made me question my own certification a little bit. Like, did I should I be that proud?
this
But
guy, this guy got it.
yeah, but like you said, it was kind of one of those things of like the focus of it. Where do you put your emphasis? Is it on the layout side, or is it? And who knows? Maybe that person was just amazing at that one side that they were good at, but the other questions and stuff were stumpers. So, in a Magento interview, if we're talking about Magento-specific on the Magentleman podcast, I would say you really want to have your fundamentals down, have your you might even just Google like um, interview questions for
What
Magento, right?
that's what I wanted to get to. Like during the interviews that we conducted, a lot of people, um, and one particular person who, I don't know if you were referring to the same person, but who said that they were certified. I mean, they couldn't answer even basic like Magento interview questions that you could find on the web, just by taking 2 seconds to Google Magento interview questions, right? It's just like, I don't know, how much work did this person put into this, and are they really certified? Like, I mean, if I ask a question, and from a back end interview, like if I ask you, what are some of the what are the design patterns used in Magento, that should just be an easy one. What are the different, I don't know, the different modes and of that you can set Magento to, right? And what are the benefits of each? Those are just things that you should not even hesitate on. Maybe you don't necessarily describe them in the most articulate way, but you should have some idea. Um, and we found like a lot of candidates couldn't even answer those simple questions, right?
Yeah, and I'm not necessarily looking for some in-depth answer. I just kind of want like an idea that you know, and
Yeah,
I don't necessarily need to hear everything, let's say about the developer mode versus production mode. Um, you know, You can pretty much just say like, I mean, the one I don't like, and it's okay, it's an answer, is well, developer mode prints the errors to the screen, and production mode doesn't. It's like, okay,
What else
yeah.
does it? What else? What other differences are there?
Yeah, I mean, but it's like that's not necessarily like a bad answer, and I do like it when people keep things kind of short.
Yeah,
You know, I when I have my questions, I'm just trying to like get through the list. You know, and so I just want to kind of hear like, sim links and um, compilation and um, ones. And yeah, you could do error printing. It's a good
yeah.
one. I actually heard in an
You don't.
interview
Yeah.
that kind of blew my mind and made me really interested in the candidate was I use develop or default mode. That's the one you want to develop in. I was like, whoa.
Wow. Okay.
But they actually gave great answers on what's production, what's developer, and they were
Hmm.
interviewing for a really kind of senior role. So it was kind of like, yeah, man. Because everybody always says that the answer is like, well, default mode, who knows? It's just some weird mode. It's like, what's the point? And that would be like my answer too. Like, but I just love the outside the box. Like, oh, what you really want to use is
Like
default
who
mode.
who uses default mode? Some nerds. No, I'm obviously I'm just kidding, but I'm saying, like, most people. I mean, we talked about one particular dev that we know that uses production mode while developing, and his reasoning behind that, right, and not necessarily understanding why he does that. But then, I mean, most developers just think, okay, I'm developing. I should just use developer mode, right? I don't have to redeploy my static content every second.
Well, okay. So I think we got to the bottom of that
Yeah,
finally. We had JavaScript bundling turned on in
yeah,
production, and it was a part of like our local scripts or something or QA site scripts that
yeah,
turned bundling off so that we could like work on the site,
yeah,
and that way the JavaScript that you have on your local or on QA is actually the script file and not just these bundled ones. And so he kind of was like, that was like his last rationale of why he had it in production mode, because otherwise, bundling gets turned off and I don't have an exact copy, right?
yeah,
So it was actually during one of our big page speed updates that I turned off Magento bundling. I was like, why is this even on? What's happening? This shouldn't, that's like that was like one of those features where they recommended it for like a couple of weeks.
yeah,
All of a sudden it came with like, I think 2.2.
yeah,
Uh, and they were like, yes, JavaScript bundling. And then almost like a couple of weeks later, they were like, actually, don't turn this on. And for whatever reason, we had it turned on for, I guess, a couple of months or
yeah. I know. This is kind of going off subject, but one thing that I found weird was now that Magento is recommending to turn off flat tables, which is a bit weird to me because flat tables are supposed to improve performance. They gave like they came back and gave me an explanation which wasn't quite clear.
something.
They
Magento Cloud people.
yeah, yeah, but I don't know. For the longest, turning on flat tables was supposed to help performance. So if anybody doesn't know that that's no longer best practice, it isn't. I don't know if you knew.
No, I think I might have heard that guy. I don't know if you know that LinkedIn guy, Yehor.
No.
He's always like just bagging on Magento.
Oh, I know. Does he wear like? Does he have like a red jacket or
Yeah,
something?
yeah,
Yeah, and blonde hair. I think he has blonde hair. Yeah,
yeah.
he
And I don't know
always.
if I'm saying his name right. Like I read it, never said it,
I
but I think he
I
posted something about that.
yeah, I connect. I follow him on LinkedIn. Even though I'm like super pro Magento, I always like look at his stuff just because it's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it leads me down interesting rabbit holes for sure. And I like to see like the comments. It's very heated. How could you say this? Why do you even working on this platform then if you hate it so much? Like, it's entertaining to me. That dude is the
maybe
best.
maybe he hasn't like plans to launch his own platform to compete with Magento down the road. I don't
Well,
know.
I think he might be involved in that group that like is planning to continue maintaining M1. Yeah,
Okay.
there's like a some group of people who want to continue providing at least security patches for M1.
Sounds like flat earthers. They they want to stick to the past, you know. We're Magento is the round earth, okay? Magento
Yeah,
2 is the round earth.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's interesting too because there was
I
those
just kidding. I don't don't hate us.
there's rumors just a couple of months ago that they're going to be deprecating the Magento 2 front end. That you know they're just going to say stop using this. I think that, even Mark Shust had a post about it. Like, can you believe the rumors? Don't do this. Don't do it quickly. Wait a couple of years. I mean, everybody just migrated to M2. Can you imagine now saying, you
Oh
know,
wow. So that means just to bring it back to interview theme, right? Because we've gone off the rails entirely now. But so that means the interview questions are gonna switch from, well, do you know the typical Magento front end stuff to like, do you know some type of, I don't know, framework where you can implement headless Magento, right? Like,
yeah, I will definitely. I mean, so that's kind of
and
the
you touched on that before.
yeah. If you're following along at home, uh, I was studying to get the JavaScript certification. I have my expert front end. Here, let me put the background up. So
Never miss an opportunity.
but so the the thing is that I hang on. This is gonna bug me if I don't do it. Okay, so I'm not gonna get my expert certificate in JavaScript because I don't think the Magento 2 front end is going to be around that much longer. I think it's going to be all React and Vue or some headless thing, probably in the next 2 years, maybe 3.
Yeah.
They really are going to deprecate it and be like, got to switch over to our new thing. Um, I mean, what's weird is that I don't know if they're gonna push like PWA Studio as the new front end, or if they're just gonna say like Magento is headless now and there is not really a front end. Probably they'll push their solution at least as like the default thing to use.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Um and yeah, that's definitely gonna make the interviewing process for front end devs, you know, a lot different. Because I mean, I think at that point, existing Magento 2 developers that may have just been like just cruising through interviews are gonna find it a lot more difficult, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you got to start learning some React, and there's a big thing coming up called Reacticon.
Yeah.
That is it's these people that do a lot with Magento, um, and they're doing like PWA Studio talks and all these things. Like if you're a Magento 2 front end developer and you're not looking into headless and stuff, you know, there will be jobs still for probably the next 10 years, but they're
Doom and
not.
gloom.
Yeah. I mean, dude, that's front end development. It's always been because I've been doing this for 15 years, something more than 10, and it is just constant change. I think we touched on the fact that when I first started, tables were going out and like CSS layout was coming in,
Yeah.
and it just continued to change from then. We had jQuery and um,
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff. It just Angular now. obviously React and Vue, and even, I mean, there's like there's just a ton. It just continues to pile on. You have to pick your area. And okay, so the main things though, like let's say that you know your stuff, you get past kind of somebody like me who might be throwing these technical questions at you and like, oh, okay, this person could do the job. Now, at a lot of places, that's pretty much it. But then there's other places where they really want to know, like, do you fit in? Um, I know for me, one of the main things is enthusiasm. If I can tell this person's excited about the job and it's not just like, I know all this stuff, but whatever, that's huge.
Yeah, I mean, during during this the period where we were kind of looking for a lead backend developer while we were still employed at the same place, we had a few candidates. They seemed pretty great, but then the enthusiasm wasn't there, right? Because when it was time to actually like start working, I think both of them, we had like two candidates that seemed, qualified for the position, but they both flaked, right? One of them got a counter offer, and the other one wasn't willing to move as much as he said he was willing to move during the interview.
Yeah, and he actually cited COVID. He was afraid of doing a job change or anything. He wanted to stop the whole process the day before starting,
Yeah,
right? Like it was his start day basically, and
yeah,
he that was strange.
yeah. I think he was on the fence from the get go. But you break up you bring up a good point, right? A good portion of the interview process is whether or not you kind of mesh with the interviewer, and maybe it's multiple people in the room and they're kind of like checking your vibe and whether or not they'd like to work with you, because someone could be brilliant, but maybe they're not the nicest person, or maybe they just won't fit into the culture. I mean, I I remember you brought up the fact that you'll check you'll check a person, you'll walk the interviewee out and take a look in their car and see if it's a mess. And then you think maybe their code is a mess, and for those reasons you won't hire them.
Okay, so I know I did say that to you. I never have actually done it. It was
Okay,
yeah,
now
no,
you're embarrassed.
no,
Okay.
I don't know. I did present it to you kind of like I have done it before when I told you that, but no, I was something I read online and like
Okay, blame it on someone else.
I think it's a kind of a cool idea. Like it's interesting.
Steve, Steve said if he detects any weirdness, then he thinks you're a weirdo. And if you're on a certain level on the weirdometer, you're not getting a job. Okay.
Right. And honestly, one of the weird things someone could do would be to wear a tie to an interview.
Wow. And you're here wearing a tie. The hypocrisy.
Yes, I am a hypocrite. So I did want to point that out that like if you're going to a technical interview, I used to ask because I like recruiters and we should talk about that a little bit. But
Yeah.
I used to ask my recruiters what should I wear, and they would always say business casual, and I'm like, well, should I wear a tie or not? And they're like, well, I guess that's up to you. And I would always wear a tie, but now I'm convinced, don't wear a tie. This is the tech industry. Don't wear a t-shirt. Just wear like a nice polo or something with a collar, maybe. Be cool. Wear jeans, sneakers.
I don't know. Maybe you've just worked for a bunch of hip companies.
I guess. I mean, um, I just don't. After many years of doing the interview in a tie, like it's the respectful thing. Like I'm like watching The Apprentice, and thinking that's what business people want. It's like, dude, the hiring managers and the people that are involved in this, they have never once worn a tie. They're always wearing a polo or something, and that's what they wear to work, just like
I mean, I I have to disagree
that. Okay.
because I definitely feel like if you work for like if you're looking for a job at like a bank, maybe, right, an insurance agency, they're looking for you to dress like, you know, like you work in an office at
Like
least for the
this
first day. Yeah,
for
yeah.
success, dress for success.
I think e-commerce is a little bit different, or maybe startups, right? Startups are a little bit different. Um, so the ex, so if you come in with a tie, maybe that is a negative, right? Because they're like, oh, I don't know, maybe this guy's not one of he won't fit into our cool startup vibe, right? He's gonna make everyone feel all tense, right, and underdressed. But if you work for an insurance agency, I actually had someone say to me that, you know, he went for a job interview and everyone seemed relaxed and super young, and you know, it gave, and he wasn't used to that because he was used to a super corporate suit and tie environment, and he wouldn't go for a job like that because he feels like he doesn't fit, he's not a fit, right? And he wouldn't be happy there. So it's definitely, I think, an industry thing, and maybe not even a maybe not the entire industry, maybe certain businesses, right?
Yeah, and I mean that is good advice because like I would never, if someone came in a tie to an interview with me, I would just think that they have respect for the, you know, position and just the kind of interview process, and I would count it as a good thing.
Yeah,
I just don't do it anymore. Like
yeah,
I'm not. I dress nice. I dress very nice, but no tie, um, jeans, nice shoes. You
yeah.
know, look like you run the place. That's my advice. Look like you run the
and
place.
intimidate your boss, make
Yeah.
your boss think he's the one in the interview.
Sir, yes, insert
he
your
start
dominance.
he starts answering questions from you and like choking and drinking water, like, yeah, this is an amazing company, you should definitely work here and not go anywhere else. You're like, are you sure?
Yeah, and I want to hit some of the main big questions that I ask and what I'm kind of expecting. I mean, so or these are also kind of questions that I've been asked a lot, and these are kind of how I answer them. One of them that I seem to always get, and that if I need to kind of start trying to feel out the personality, or maybe I want to hear more about what you've done in the past, or just a lot of times I'll just ask something you did recently that you're really proud of, right?
Good
And
question.
what I'm looking for there is for the person, or what when I say these answers, is just a humble kind of a humble brag, right? You don't want to be like selling yourself. You're just saying, as a matter of factly, this is a thing I did that nobody else on my team could figure out, right? I did this thing, and you don't go on for 20 minutes. Like keep it short. Just say I solved this bug and nobody else on the team could. For me, that's knocking that question out of the park. I don't know what you think.
No, it's definitely it's definitely a good question, because it forces the person to actually um describe something, and you can, and it's a good way to determine if they're a faker, right? Because I mean, if let's say the first few questions were generic Magento interview questions, right, about the framework, about how certain things work, someone could easily study those for I don't know, like a week or two, and, you know, be ready for those. But um when you ask them about one particular thing, and not just one particular thing that they've done, but something they're proud of, well, if the thing that they're proud of is not particularly, you know, amazing, then, you know, okay, maybe this person's doesn't, maybe they're selling themselves as someone who has more experience than they claim they do, or maybe they just don't like the thing that they try to describe. It's just like, wait, I don't know, that doesn't add up, that's not how it we do it or how Magento recommends we do it, right? I think it
Yeah.
exposes. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, I have sympathy for
Mm-hmm.
that question because it is like an on the spot thing that you
Yeah.
might have not pre thought of beforehand, and you're just kind of like blah, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe you did do something amazing, but you just can't remember it at that time.
So
And you're
that's the
just
big
like,
advice though, is just try to think of those and maybe make a list, have that available during your interview process. Like, what is something you've done recently that makes you proud that you're, and especially if you can kind of frame it in a way like nobody else could figure this out, but I was able to, and this was the solution, and then shut up,
yeah.
because you don't want to just blah, 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 blah. Like, it, it doesn't help, I don't think.
Yeah. Well, I think it's like in terms of like how much do you speak? I think it's definitely it definitely depends on the interviewer, right? You kind of have to have a
Oh, yeah.
feel, right?
Yeah. I
And
mean, I've been in interviews where I like barely say anything. The
yeah.
person interviews themselves. It's like, okay.
They're just saying so much and you're like, "Wait, I didn't ask all that, but okay."
No, no. I mean, like I've been interviewing,
Oh,
and the person, the
it,
interviewer
yeah.
just talks the whole time, and it's just like, whoa, okay. And
Well,
it's
my internship was like that. I mean, my former boss, he's a really cool guy, but honestly, it was like I pretty much had the job, right? Because it wasn't like I was being challenged. It was more of like a conversation, and he had more to say to me. Like, like not that he had more to say, but he didn't give me enough time to say much. It was just more of like, yeah, this is what we do at the company. The company's amazing. This is what you're gonna do. I'm like, I'm gonna do it. So I have the job already. Okay, cool.
yeah. And I mean, I've also had interviews where there wasn't like a technical element necessarily. It
Yeah.
was just kind of like, and maybe that comes with like a bunch of experience or like a resume where they're just like, okay, we trust that you could do the job, or maybe they're willing to take the couple of weeks to find out, like we'll
Ooh.
hire you, and if you suck, we'll just get rid of you type of thing. But really, the
Wow.
interview is fully, um, are you a fit? I've had
Yeah.
those too.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I think once they see that resume and right, some people don't. They're not, they're interviewing to see if you fit into the culture, if you're going to be a nice person to work with. Maybe maybe it's the opposite, right? Maybe it's not that you're so experienced, but it's just a junior role, and they're looking to see if someone's you know malleable, if they listen, if they're open to mentorship, if they're ambitious, right? Because you don't really expect much from a junior person right out of the gate. You just want them to be eager to learn. I mean, it's hard for newer people to like it's getting harder and harder. And I think when it comes to Magento, it's almost impossible to get a junior role. But generally speaking, you don't expect much from a junior person, especially like someone who just graduated. It's more of like, okay, will this person listen to me and not blow up the production site in the minute we hire him, right?
Yeah, I mean, junior people, you really you are looking for that enthusiastic attitude, and is going to get along with everyone, and like you said, is going to progress hopefully quickly uh, towards being helpful.
Yeah, 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 yeah. But I guess to, I just wanted to like touch on my um entrance into the into the Magento sphere, right? Um, as a fresh graduate, I guess I did get some technical questions. They weren't too they like I had to know some Magento stuff. Like, and I don't know, I wouldn't necessarily say the question that I was asked. I mean, I was asked like a generic question that's in terms of like how do you override a controller in Magento, right? It turns out that that's not one of the questions I studied for, but because I had previous experience or just reading the Magento documents, I was able to the Magento documentation. I was able to answer the question, but they weren't.
I like Magento documents better. Let's say that from now on. That is
they
really cool.
they weren't too hard on me, and I think it paid back pretty well. You know, for them, not being too hard, asking me questions to see if I was motivated and if I had put in some effort to learn something myself, but also, not expecting me to be a senior with 6 years of experience, even though Magento has been around for 5 years, right?
Yeah.
The,
I'm,
what?
I was just writing a note. Go
Oh,
ahead.
okay. But the other thing is, right, how do you, I guess you were going to talk about um recruiters. What did you want to touch on recruiters? Because
I mean,
I wanted to add some stuff, but I want to hear what you wanted to say first.
my first few jobs out of college, I got myself. I used Craigslist or something.
Craigslist.
Yeah, I had like a lot of success off of Craigslist for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Um, and then probably 5, maybe 6 years ago, I started kind of. Oh no, this would be 8, 7, 7 somewhere in there. Years ago, I started getting involved with recruiters because I was doing contract work. So I would. They always want to hire for 6 months or something, right? And that's. So I was using them because I wanted to do my own business and kind of. So I got involved with a bunch of recruiters. It did turn out that I wanted to keep freelancing and running my whole own business. I got back into salaried full-time work, but I continued to use the recruiters to find those jobs, and I've had a lot of really good success doing that. So I don't know if it's something that's necessarily great for people in their early career or not, but I do highly recommend. I mean, because the nice part of it is, like you said, you'll go to a recruiter and you kind of do an interview there, and then that recruiter will go out and they'll source these different jobs, and you're kind of almost at interview 2 or 3 by the time you walk in from a recruiter because they're like pumping you up. Now the problem with the recruiters is they're going to try to send you to every job and like tweak your resume to match whatever job. I don't really recommend doing that. You kind of have to be firm with the recruiters and tell them, look, I do this. Don't send me on all these different jobs I'm not interested, because they really will try to turn you into a, I don't know, cobalt coder or something. You could probably do that, right? We'll send you this job. It's like,
Yeah. Yeah. So you do PHP, right? Let's send you for this .NET job over here. Right?
I mean, and it depends on like the quality of the
C
recruiter too, but
C# over here.
yeah, I mean, I think because probably to a lot of them, they don't know necessarily the technologies very well themselves.
Yeah.
So I was kind of interested to hear that you actually had a whiteboard at a recruiter.
Yeah.
That's a little different to me, but that sounds like a really good recruiter then. Like they're
Yeah.
wow.
It was actually for a position at FedEx, a
Okay,
junior role at FedEx.
you're gonna be sued now for saying that name.
No, FedEx is just gonna sponsor this video. That's
Ah,
all.
nice.
But shout out to Gabe at Jarvis Cole.
Oh, Jarvis Cole's getting a shout out. Yes.
Best recruiter ever. Yeah. So my experience with recruiters has been extremely positive. Honestly, when I initially like graduated and started looking for jobs, I read a lot of negative things about recruiters, how they're super shady. And like you said, they're like tweaking your resume and submitting you for jobs, and you sign documents and they just submit you for jobs without you knowing, and just a whole bunch of craziness and them not having your best interest. But honestly, that has not been my experience. every job I've gotten has been with the help of a recruiter. So yeah, like I said, Gabe was super amazing. Helped through every step. I feel like I'm like people are gonna think like they pay me or something, but
Maybe they should pay us. Come on, Jarvis Cole.
but but essentially like um they helped with he like Gabe helped with every step in terms of like telling me, what the employer's expectations would be, um, you know, uh, what is the salary range to expect. But he wasn't like, well, you know, just go in $20, 20,000, um, 20,000 under what you want. He was like, well, this is what you want, and this is what they're aiming for. I mean, you could try to go higher than that, but your chances of getting the job will be decreased. And I mean, maybe that could have been something shady, but I felt like he was super genuine with that.
No,
Um,
yeah, because I think
yeah,
they have it's like a mutually beneficial thing.
exactly,
They kind of
exactly,
have the same type of interest as you have that you get the job.
exactly. All I can say is now, especially that now, I've been on LinkedIn for a while and have a few connections. I get recruiters reach out to me all the time, and whenever someone's telling me they want to get a job, I just tell them, hey, create a LinkedIn profile, make sure everything's up to date, and recruiters should start reaching out to you, and then you'll eventually land a job, or at least get interviews. Right at the end of the day, it's about getting that interview, and at that point, if you know your stuff and you've really been putting in the work, you should land something eventually.
Yeah, I mean, I once got a job when I was freelancing at a company in India who NBC, since we're mentioning names, was outsourcing some uh, work to for like a Drupal website, and I got hired at that company in India remotely to go work on site at NBC. Um, Now, funnily enough, they actually kind of put us in like a closet. So I was it was just awesome. I was on like the 20th floor. They had all these huge oak cubicles. The whole floor was amazing. And then it was me and like four Indian people in a closet. Like, and there was no windows in there. We all just were at our
Oh
tables at
wow.
our computer. Yeah, and I mean, I worked there probably for 4 months or so. I mean, the project ended, and
They just like open up this little thing and just push food in there, and they're like, keep working, there's more bugs.
they wouldn't let me
And you're
keep
like
my little key fob either.
you're like,
I
when
wanted a
am I gonna
souvenir.
leave? They're like, the contract's gonna be over in 3 more months. Keep working, Steve, you're
It was
doing
a
a good job.
it was a good opportunity. It was a
You're
good
like,
job. I don't want to besmirch anybody. I just thought it was funny where they kept the outsourced development team was like in, I guess not really a closet, but
they're
it wasn't like the rest of the place. That's for sure.
they were hiding you from the other development team. They didn't want them to know that they were getting help. They're like, yeah, the in-house development team's like, yeah, we're really killing it, right? Management's like, yeah, you guys are awesome. While they're
Good
like, look,
job.
give this ticket to Steve.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, I think we're getting close to our hour time limit. Was there anything else you wanted to wrap up and put in the interview discussion here? We could always do interview V2. I mean, I feel like there's just a ton of things to talk about in this topic.
Yeah, I mean, my summary is basically, I think the interview process will vary industry to industry and from company to company, and you know, you just kind of gotta have you kind of have to study the culture of the company and maybe look on it on places like Glassdoor to see what the interview process is like, and kind of, if you're adamant about getting a specific type of job and all those jobs require whiteboarding, then you need to become really good at that. But there are a lot of companies that don't require whiteboarding. You just kind of have to know your stack, answer technical questions and just be a good person that's not weird, and you'll get the job.
Yeah. And
Once you get an interview.
even if you are weird, you know, you can still get the job too, you know.
Weird is subjective, so
Lean into your strengths, right? Like if you I mean, I guess it is sort of to a degree about being self-aware.
yeah.
Um so obviously that's a very hard thing to do, but if you can use a recruiter or someone you trust and just try to see what your strengths are going to be, like if you feel like maybe you're long-winded, try to keep it shorter. If you feel like you don't talk enough, maybe you're an introvert, you're going to have to try to say more, right? And you just have to lean into your strengths and just like you said, don't be a weirdo.
But if the company you're interviewing for is full of weird people, maybe you should turn up the weirdness.
And that's the thing too, like that's the encouragement, right? Like if you're going through interview after interview and it's kind of just not happening for you, um, keep going because you're gonna hit that one job where you do fit in and you're gonna be happy, hopefully for a long time. You know, I think there's a screw for every nut. You know, that every kind of job maybe I wouldn't like, you know, this other person maybe would. So hopefully the interview process would work out for them. I know it sucks to uh, fail at an interview. I've done that a bunch. And a lot of times too, you kind of have that desperation of like, if you've been laid off or you lost your job because you slept in 10 times or whatever, and you're trying to get back on the horse, you kind of like need a job, like, and you gotta try to perform, but really you want to fight that too. Don't seem desperate. That's the last thing, right? Like you want to kind of have that attitude of like, well, I'm actually interviewing you. You
Yeah.
know, not too
Yeah.
much. Don't be a dick, but you know, don't be
Yeah.
desperate.
Yeah, yeah. Some level of confidence is definitely important. Um and like you said, every screw has a nut, right? Maybe you're applying, if you're not getting interviews, maybe you're applying for jobs that in the wrong industry, right? Maybe you should switch it up, look at different types of companies that would be more willing to take a look at you. Maybe smaller companies, because I mean, everyone wants to work at Google, but there are so many jobs at Google. Not telling anyone to not aspire to work at Google. I'm just saying everyone can't work at Google.
Yeah, and I don't think everybody wants to work at Google.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, I do.
But I mean, if you look at YouTube, for sure, it's just about FANG,
Yep.
Facebook, Amazon, Google, Netflix, and
Well, but
Netflix,
not Nick
Google.
White, right? Like he doesn't want to work at Fang.
Well, I think Mark Schuss doesn't want to work at Google either.
There you go. Yep. You're watching the wrong YouTubes, buddy.
But I think this is a good place to end it, right? We're at the hour mark now.
Yep.
Okay, guys, thank you for watching again.
And we'll be in touch. We'll let you know if you know if it works out or not. What do you say at the end of an interview? Like, what's the proper? What? How should we end this? I have to check my notes. Yeah. Well, I mean, we're gonna be in touch.
Yeah,
We'll let you
give us
know.
about 2 weeks to give you an update, which actually doesn't happen.
We're not.
Just don't look for the email.
Goodbye,
Bye.
gentlemen and magenta women.
Bye.